Konoha burns to ashes, and you see the bodies of Naruto and Sasuke in the mud. This isn't a nightmare, it's reality. How did everything reach this destructive point? One day, you were training. Boruto felt the cold wind on his face, chakra pulsing, a deceptive peace in the air. He couldn't even imagine the storm brewing. Konoha's tranquility was just a thin veil, about to be torn apart. Then, an alarm. The sky suddenly darkened, a sinister red shroud extending over the village. Boruto felt the ground tremble, a malignant energy erupting from the depths. He knew then that peace was a lie. Urgent messages popped up on screen, whispers of despair. The Akatsuki. They weren't a myth, but a real threat, a nightmare reborn. You'll feel his fear. The impact of the news hit Boruto like a punch. Naruto and Sasuke, the pillars of Konoha, were dead. His heart stopped. Darkness consumed everything. You'll feel the emptiness. The entire village turned into hell, houses collapsing, screams cutting through the dense air. Boruto saw innocents fall, endless destruction, a trail of hate and vengeance forming. He had to do something. An icy fury took over Boruto. He swore to avenge every lost life, every drop of blood spilled. But then, he realized something brutal. The old rules, the traditional ninja path, no longer served this new war. This wasn't his father's fight. This was his. The world needed a new kind of hero, one willing to cross limits to save what remained. You'll understand that difference. Boruto felt a chill. Vengeance would be cold, calculated. He was willing to pay the price, no matter what it was, to stop the Akatsuki from dominating everything. A dark power awakened within him, a fiery will that promised to change destiny. Now, the war was his. He raised his fist, the promise of a new path sealed in his eyes. The Akatsuki would be hunted. Pain tore Boruto apart from the inside, but he forged it into steel. Fury became a sharp blade, ready to cut through the impossible. He raised his fist, yes, but his gaze was detached, a silent goodbye. The weight of vengeance crushed him, and you feel it. He turned his back on Konoha, without looking back. The rubble, the smell of death, all of it was left behind. It wasn't escape, it was a new beginning, a plunge into the unknown. He needed more than just simple chakra. The traditional ninja path seemed like a cruel joke now. The Hokage's rules, the promises of peace, all turned to dust. He understood that to fight against the darkness, he would need to be the shadow itself. You'll see how far he went. Boruto knew that power was beyond scrolls, beyond clans. He needed minds, wounded hearts, people willing to break everything. It was a search for a brutal force, without codes. Solitude was a cold companion, and every step was uncertain. He wandered through forgotten alleys, abandoned villages, every dark corner of the ninja world. It was there, in a decaying tavern, that he heard the first whispers. They were the disillusioned, homeless, hopeless people, abandoned by the great Kages, rogue ninjas, former criminals, civilians who lost everything. They were the perfect raw material for his war. You'll understand why. Do you want a purpose? Boruto's voice was icy cold, yet full of fire. I offer you the chance to make the Akatsuki pay, not for foolish revenge, but for justice. He promised a new world. He offered no hugs or comfort, just the raw truth. They would fight and perhaps die, but that death would have meaning, an impact. His eyes conveyed an untamable hunger, and you felt the power. An ex-Kiri ninja, empty eyes, looked at Boruto with suspicion. Why would an Uzumaki do this? He spat. The scar on his face told a story of betrayal, of broken promises. Because I'm no longer an Uzumaki. Not in the way you think, Boruto retorted, his voice low, dangerous. I am a storm the Akatsuki created, and I need dirty hands to clean it up. He extended his own hand. The ex-Kiri ninja looked at the outstretched hand, hesitated, but a flicker of hope ignited. A silent agreement formed, but the ground trembled again. A new darkness, a new enemy, was hunting Boruto. The ground trembled again, and you felt the icy air. Shadows stretched, figures too fast for the common eye. They weren't from the Akatsuki, but hunters, and their eyes glowed with deadly intent. Boruto needed to react, and fast. He pushed the ex-Kiri ninja back, an instinctive protective movement. His hand glowed with furious chakra, and a smaller but potent Rasengan shot out. The impact cracked the earth, and the attackers scattered in a flash. Boruto was ready for war. The hunters retreated, but didn't flee. Boruto stopped in the middle of the smoke, and the scar on his eye pulsed, a sign that there was no turning back. We are not fugitives, his voice echoed, loud and clear. We are the Red Cloak, the one who will cleanse the rot. He looked at his new recruit, his eyes fixed on the fury. There are villages, neutral in the war, that enrich themselves from others' misery. They sell weapons, food, everything to the Akatsuki. Boruto's vengeance was surgical, and you would see the execution. The journey was silent, under a starless night sky. They moved like shadows, a small group of outcasts and desperate souls, now with a unified purpose. The wind carried the smell of burnt wood from Konoha, a constant reminder of what was at stake. With every step, Boruto felt the weight of the world. The village of Kagurigami, hidden in the mountains, didn't expect their arrival. The sentinels fell without a sound, and Boruto's war cry cut through the silence. Fire erupted, kunai flew, and the ex-Kiri ninja showed his hunger. The brutal mission had begun, and there would be no mercy. Boruto didn't hesitate, not for a second. He saw the shocked faces of the villagers, the barrels full of money, the weapons stolen from Konoha. Their cruelty fueled the Akatsuki, and Boruto saw no innocence there. His justice was cold, relentless, and you felt that decision. A fat merchant tried to hide a scroll with Akatsuki supply routes. Boruto intercepted him without effort. You financed the destruction of my village. His voice was a dangerous whisper. And now, you will pay the price. All of it. In a few hours, Kagurigami was in ruins, its treasures looted, its warehouses in ashes. It was a demonstration of power, a warning to anyone who dared profit from chaos. But the scroll revealed something darker, a connection Boruto didn't expect. The war was about to get much bigger. The name of an ancient, long-forgotten clan was written between the lines of the scroll, the Akatsuki. Boruto felt a chill down his spine. They weren't just hunters or merchants. They were pieces in a much bigger game, and you knew that changed everything. The scroll with the Akatsuki name was a ticking time bomb, and Boruto smelled a much bigger conspiracy. He didn't wait, and the village of Kagurigami, still in smoking ashes, was the stage for the first lesson. Loyalty was now forged in iron, and punishment in fire. You noticed the change in him. That name, Akatsuki, echoed in Boruto's mind, a dark melody that promised challenges beyond the Akatsuki. But the war wouldn't wait, so he needed more than answers. He needed power, soldiers willing to get their hands dirty without hesitation. You'll feel the urgency of that quest. In a few weeks, the Red Cloak was no longer a group of outcasts. It was a growing shadow, attracting rogue ninjas, mercenaries, and civilians who lost everything, scattered like seeds of vengeance. Boruto promised a purpose, a chance to make the great powers pay, and the hunger in his eyes was contagious. Boruto didn't lead with emotional speeches or empty promises, but with cold and brutal efficiency. He used everyone's resentments, manipulated their fears, turned pain into a sharp weapon. Each recruit felt they were regaining something, even if it was just the capacity for destruction. The shinobi world began to whisper. Reports of commercial villages attacked, Akatsuki supply posts raided, all with surgical precision and without mercy. They called it the new Akatsuki, but the truth was more terrifying. It was something much worse, and you felt the danger. Boruto's next target was the hidden sand village, not to destroy, but to infiltrate. He knew that the Kazekage Gaara possessed crucial information about Akatsuki smuggling routes and the location of forgotten sanctuaries that might hold traces of the Akatsuki. The mission was delicate, risky. He used the Kiri ninja to create a calculated disturbance at the border, drawing the attention of the Anbu. Meanwhile, Boruto, disguised and invisible as a shadow, used his Jogan to map the blind spots in the sand's defenses, planning every step. The night was an accomplice, and the wind, a whisper of betrayal. Boruto invaded the Kazekage's tower like a ghost, every move calculated. He didn't want confrontations, just information. Gaara's office was a sanctuary of secrets, ancient maps, and encrypted scrolls. Boruto needed them, but an unexpected presence made him stop. A hooded figure with a dark and familiar chakra was waiting, eyes glowing in the dark. It was Sarada Uchiha, but not the one Boruto knew. Her Sharingan spun, and her expression, once determined, now held a mix of hate and sadness. You knew that was trouble. So you really became a monster, Boruto. Her voice was icy, and the chakra blade in her hands hummed, ready for attack. But her gaze was filled with despair, almost pleading. Boruto showed no emotion, but his body stiffened. He knew he would face friends and enemies on his new path. But Sarada was different, a constant reminder of what he had lost. The fight was inevitable, and he was ready to pay any price. Sarada's sword cut through the air, and Boruto barely dodged, feeling the deadly intent behind the blow. He didn't want to hurt her, but he couldn't stop his mission either. This confrontation was the final test of his new identity, and the cost would be extremely high. Sarada's chakra blade cut through the air like thunder, but Boruto was already far away. He moved like a ghost, dodging, not attacking. His objective wasn't the fight, it was information. But Sarada wouldn't give an opening, and you feel her fury. She attacked again, furious, and her Sharingan burned with hate and sadness. Boruto saw the pain in her, but he couldn't retreat. He was no longer the boy she knew, and that harsh truth needed to be conveyed, even if it was with his hands. Sarada activated her Mangekyo Sharingan, a purple lightning exploding in her hands. You betrayed everything, Boruto. Her voice trembled, but her intent was deadly. She didn't care for his words, only for the betrayal she felt, and you knew the risk. Boruto felt the blow, almost hitting him. He realized he needed to go beyond. A sinister glow appeared in his Jogan, and his body began to move with a speed Sarada had never seen, a dance of death that anticipated every one of her attacks. He counterattacked, not with brute force, but with calculated precision, aiming for vital chakra points. Sarada tried to block, but her energy flow was interrupted, and she felt the shock, a blow that unsettled not the body, but the soul. Sarada staggered, her Mangekyo failing for an instant, and in that split second, Boruto immobilized her. A purple Rasengan, smaller but intense, appeared in his hand, almost touching her chest. "I didn't want this," he whispered, his voice cold as ice. "But you forced me." She collapsed, her body heavy, her chakra in chaos. Boruto took the scrolls from Gaara's desk, ignoring Sarada's fallen body, the pain he felt inside, hidden beneath a mask of calm. He couldn't fail, and you felt the weight of that decision. But one of the scrolls was different, bearing an Akatsuki symbol. It was a map, and it showed more than supply routes. It was the location of a secret fortress, hidden in a forgotten desert. That place held an ancient secret. The map indicated a reanimation ritual, not of simple jutsus, but something much greater. The Akatsuki wasn't just being reborn, they were trying to bring back an entity, a power that eclipsed everything ever seen, and you felt hope silenced. Boruto felt a chill down his spine. It wasn't just the Akatsuki. The scroll mentioned an ancient being, a god of destruction, that could be awakened. The truth was brutal, and the fate of the ninja world hung by a thread, and he knew the price to pay. Then a tremor, not from the building, but from the entire earth. A sinister red glow tore through the sky, coming from the direction of the fortress. The Akatsuki was awakening the impossible, and Boruto felt the ground tremble beneath his feet, certain that the war had begun. The ninja world was about to fall into ruins, and you feel the despair. The red glow tore through the night sky, and Boruto felt the dense air of ancient chakra, an energy that promised destruction. He knew the ritual was underway, and the Akatsuki didn't expect to be interrupted. But the true threat was much greater. The map wasn't just a guide. It was the key to understanding that the shinobi world was rotten, not just because of the Akatsuki, but because of everyone who allowed this rise. The inert Kages, the neutral villages that profited from chaos. They were silent accomplices to the annihilation. Boruto's fury was no longer blind. It was an icy flame that consumed him. It wasn't enough to bring down the Akatsuki. He needed to purge everything, purify the world of every coward, every opportunist, every single one who watched Konoha burn. The cleansing would be total. He knew this decision would make him a monster to some, a savior to others, but there was no other way. He looked at Sarada lying there, and her pain mingled with his own rage. She also needed to understand that sacrifice was inevitable. The Kiri ninja, still panting from the fight, looked at Boruto. "Are we stopping the Akatsuki then?" he asked, his face hardened. His voice carried the anxiety of the imminent battle. But Boruto had a double plan. "Not just the Akatsuki," Boruto replied, his voice heavy with deadly intent. "The Kages who ignored, the villages that profited, those who watched Konoha fall and did nothing. They will also pay. All of them." His eye gleamed with deep contempt. The Kiri recruit recoiled, a look of shock on his face. "But they are our," he began. But Boruto interrupted him with an icy gaze. "There was no us and them anymore. Only those who would be swept away. They are the reason we are here," Boruto retorted, his tone dangerous. "They let the darkness grow, because they were too concerned with their own thrones. We will use the Akatsuki's fury to expose their rot. You will see the truth." The Akatsuki fortress now pulsed with horrifying chakra, the red light painting the desert. Boruto and his group moved in the darkness, but now with a new objective. Not just to stop, but to reveal, to use the chaos for his own purification. They approached the fortress, and Boruto activated his Jugen. He saw the Akatsuki, yes, but he also noticed hidden figures in the dunes, ninjas from other villages, some with Konoha symbols, waiting to investigate, or worse, loot. His hatred grew. Boruto felt the betrayal in every shadow, in every whisper of the wind. Those aliens were no different from the enemies. The war wouldn't just be against the Akatsuki, it would be against a system that fed on misery, and he was ready to bring down everything. He turned to the Kiri ninja, his eyes fixed and cold. Today, the ninja world will learn to fear not only the Akatsuki, but also the truth. We are the Red Cloak, and our vengeance is just beginning. The ground trembled again, and the battle became personal. The red glow from the Akatsuki fortress exploded into the night sky, and Boruto smelled death in the air. He and the Red Cloak launched their attack, not to save, but to judge. The figures in the dunes, Konoha's allies, trembled. The ground trembled again, and a shapeless form began to emerge from the heart of the fortress. It was the entity, a mass of corrupted chakra, and its first target was the Sand Village, which crumbled under a shockwave. Their ritual had succeeded. The god of destruction was free, and the Akatsuki celebrated, while Boruto watched the annihilation. But his fury wasn't for what he saw, but for what was hidden. He knew the truth was even more brutal. He didn't hesitate, and a dark Rasengan formed in his hand, but not for the monster. Boruto aimed at one of the Akatsuki leaders, a hooded figure who laughed hysterically, with a familiar gleam in his eyes. The final battle had arrived. The Akatsuki leader, with a strangely familiar Sharingan, dodged with ease. "You think you understand, boy?" His voice was a venomous whisper. You think Konoha's destruction was ours? Partially, yes, but the spark came from within. Boruto stopped, the Rasengan pulsing in his hand. What are you saying? His voice was an icy growl. He felt the air grow heavy, and a chill run down his spine. The premonition of something terrible confirming itself. Your father, the Hokage, and your mentor, Sasuke, were betrayed. The Akatsuki leader spat, and his Sharingan glowed with ancient hate.
Konoha's own elders, fearing your power, facilitated our entry.
They opened the gates to destruction. Those words hit Boruto like thunder, shattering his soul.
Konoha didn't fall just because of external enemies. It was an internal rottenness, a betrayal from those he trusted most. Rage consumed him, and his Jugon burned with a terrifying intensity. Boruto didn't attack the Akatsuki leader, but rather the ground itself, creating an abyss that swallowed the leader and part of the fortress. The destruction was now his. He turned to the ninjas hidden in the dunes, the allies, those waiting to loot. You are no better than the Akatsuki. Boruto's voice cut through the air, filled with icy contempt. You allowed Konoha to fall. Some of you even profited. Now the ninja world will be purified, and I will be the instrument. The final battle wasn't just against the monster or the Akatsuki, but against a rotten system. Boruto and the Red Cloak attacked the allies, the cowards, while the god of destruction, now disoriented and out of control, turned its fury against everything. The fortress collapsed in a chaos of fire and dust, taking the Akatsuki and the lies with it. Boruto, standing amidst the ruins, felt no victory, but a deep emptiness. He had exposed the truth. So, what did you think of this shocking twist in Boruto's destiny? Is his vengeance just now? Leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos, and tell me in the comments what you would do in his place.